Hi, my name is Brian Robert Oliver, and I'm making this video for those of you out there who are trying to stop drinking, trying to stop using, but you feel powerless over that voice inside of your head that says, I want to drink or I want to use. And a little bit about myself. I drank for over 25 years. You could say I was a problem drinker. I drank in excess. I was a binge drinker, again, for 25 years straight. I started drinking at 16 years old, started drinking heavily at 19 years old, and I tried to quit plenty of times, and I was never able to. But I could tell you right now, I'm sitting here in front of you with over a year of sobriety to my name for the first time in my adult life. And there are many reasons why I was able to do that. But I think the main reason why is a technique that I taught myself, that I stumbled upon accidentally in early sobriety, that I like to call the alcoholic personality method. What the alcoholic personality method is a technique that is very simple to use and very simple to try to do that will absolutely kill all cravings for drugs and alcohol. And I'm going to teach it to you today. But first, before I get into that, I do need to explain to you what I mean when I say alcoholic personality or addicted personality. What I'm talking about is an independent personality that exists within every addict, within every alcoholic. This personality is independent of other personalities. And basically, whenever you feel the urge to drink or use, whenever you're faced with a reason, for example, maybe you are depressed, maybe you are uncomfortable or seeking a reward, this personality will step forward and say, I want to drink. And it usually comes in the form of that voice. I want to drink or I want to use. And here's the thing. That voice is not you. That voice does not actually belong to you. That voice belongs to your alcoholic or addicted personality. Now, I know this sounds kind of crazy for most people. Most people just assume they're of, one personality. And it might sound like what I'm speaking of is something called dissociative identity disorder, or what was once known as multiple personality disorder. I'm not talking about that. What I am talking about has its roots in something called multiplicity, or the theory of multiplicity, or the multiple selves theory. The best way to describe it, and by the way, this is a decades old psychological theory, but the best way to explain it would be an example. So, for example, when you're arguing with yourself, when you're torn about something, when you're upset with yourself about something, who are you arguing with? Or how about this? When you get to the bottom of the argument, when you win the argument, or when you come to a conclusion to this argument, who convinced whom of what was what? Now, when you apply it to my issue with alcohol, with your issue with alcohol or drugs, it becomes a little bit more clear. So here's another example. You've been trying to quit drinking or using drugs for a long time, maybe years. You know it's bad for you. You know that it is ruining your life. You know that it has the capacity to completely destroy your life if it hasn't already. You've embarrassed yourself. You've embarrassed other people. You've hurt people. You've put yourself and others in danger. And so you say, that's it. I'm done, man. I quit. I don't want to do this anymore. And maybe you put a couple of days together. Maybe you're doing pretty good. You're feeling pretty good after 2-3 days of sobriety. Then all of a sudden something happens, right? Maybe your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your spouse yells at you, or you get upset with them, and then you think to yourself, I want to drink, or I want to use. And maybe you could fight it off at first, but that little voice in your head that you think is you keeps growing and growing and getting louder until eventually you find yourself drinking or using again. And you think to yourself, I am so unbelievably weak. I have no resolve. I have no control. But that's not true. You do have control. Your problem is that you don't want to drink, but you've given over control to this personality. You've given this personality full consent to step forward and take control whenever you feel uncomfortable or whenever you want a reward. And what I mean by that is that I've always known that alcohol has the capacity to ruin my life. Let me tell you, it's ruined so many people in my family's lives. My uncle is in prison right now for murder while he was drunk. My cousin killed himself at a party when he was drunk. My other uncle on my mother's side died of alcohol abuse. His liver and his kidney shut down completely. And I've known this, so why would I still drink? Why do you still drink? Why do you still use when you know this is what could happen? Why would a person who has so much to lose and puts in so much potential just ruin that potential, ruin their lives for drinking or using? It's crazy, right? But even knowing that, you still drink, or I still drank. I did that for years because I felt completely powerless to that voice in my head until I was basically confronted and told by a counselor of mine who was also happened to be a hypnotherapist, but a drug and alcohol counselor, that told me that basically said early in sobriety, that says, you don't want to drink. You don't want to drink. You have too much to lose. But your problem is you have an alcoholic between your ears. My mind exploded, expanded at that moment. Because at the time I was reading and studying about multiplicity. I was just fascinated with it for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe this is why. Speaking of the alcoholic personality, of the addictive personality, when you add in the science of behavior, that the physical science behavior, it actually builds the case even more. Okay, so there is a guy, his name is Joe Dispenza. You probably heard of him. Maybe you haven't. But he's a scientist. He's a lecturer. He is an authority on the mind-body connection. And he wrote a book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And in it, he wrote something to the effect, and I'm paraphrasing here, that every time that you try something new, neurons in your brain fire synapses, connecting parts of your brain together. This is a pathway, and I'm talking about an actual physical pathway. And when you do that new thing enough times, that pathway becomes fortified. It gets stronger over time. So you do that thing enough times, it becomes a habit. You do that habit for long enough, and that habit becomes a personality. So what that means for you, and for me, who drank for years, is that the first time that I discovered that alcohol was the solution to one or many, and eventually almost all, of my problems, a pathway was formed in my brain, a physical pathway. Again, neurons fired synapses, physical, actual matter in my brain. In this pathway was a message, and this message said, when I feel this way, I drink and I feel better. And that's happening to you, or it has happened to you, especially if you're still listening to this. But these connections have become so unbelievably strong that they can run on their own. It's like a computer program that is running on its own. You don't even need to think about it. It's kind of like driving a car or taking a shower, right? So for example, when you get into a car, and this is from Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, Joe Dispenza. When you're driving a car, you've done it so many times, you never get in the car and say, okay, put key in ignition, turn ignition, put foot on brake, look over my shoulder, put in reverse. You don't do that. You don't have to do that because you've done it so many times, you don't have to think about that stuff. And how else is it possible? And I'm sure that you've experienced this. I've done this before, but you've been driving on the highway or the freeway and you just become lost in thought. And then all of a sudden you come to from this trance that you're in, and it is a trance. You come to from this trance and you realize you missed your exit by 8 exits. And you're scared. You're like, oh my God, I wasn't paying attention. How did I get here? Well, you got there because you were in a trance, and B, because you didn't actually have to think about doing what you were doing. You don't have to think about driving anymore. You know how to do it. And that is exactly what it's like for you and your addiction to alcohol or drugs. That there's all of these pathways in your brain that lead to the same place, and that's to drink. Now, here's where the personality comes in. When you started drinking, chances are, like most people, you discovered alcohol or drugs at a very young age, at least in your early 20s. Okay. Now, when you're at that age, you actually don't have the wisdom or the knowledge to solve any of your problems. You think you do, but you don't. Your brain is actually not fully developed until you're in your mid 20s. So, this personality of yours, this alcoholic or addicted personality, is a child, essentially. It's the same age as when those pathways were formed, because you had an identity at that time. And that, when you discovered something that powerful, something that amazing in a way, at the time that sort of felt amazing, right? This solution to life's problems, drinking or drugs. That was huge. It was life altering. You had an identity then. That is a personality that is still with you to this day. And it is that same age, if not younger. Because think about it. Like, how else would you explain it? Right? Again, like a person who would throw their life away just for a night of drinking or using drugs. Right? Because isn't this again, isn't your issue with alcohol or drugs, isn't it just really, really childish? Because again, I'll go back to the point that when you discovered drugs and alcohol, or drugs or alcohol, you didn't know how to solve your problems. And because at that age you don't know how to solve your problems, all you can really do is run from them or hide from them in hope that they go away. And think about it. You get in an argument with your spouse, or maybe your boss is a dick and yells at you at work. And you say, I'm going to have a drink, or I'm going to use. And you do it, and you tell people, oh, it helps me. But how is that possible? Because you didn't do anything to solve your problem. And now you have a hangover. Here's the thing. When you discover drugs and alcohol, most likely you were young. Like, that was brilliant. I mean, that's not a popular thing to say, right? But it was something, it was a solution. If you're anything like me, I didn't have any guidance. I mean, I have both of them growing up. I still do, luckily. But they were childish. I mean, they loved me. But, they were kind of kids themselves, and they have issues of their own. But all these years later, you're still doing the same thing. And while that solution worked for you when you were a child, when you were a kid, it doesn't work for the adult that you are right now. And the solution is now the problem. You need a solution to the solution, right? That's what they say in recovery. So, with that being said, let's talk about the alcoholic personality method. I've just babbled on for a while. This is going to be a long video. I should have probably mentioned that early on. I didn't. I'm sorry. So let's talk about the alcoholic personality method and how you can use it. How it can work for you. So look, before we get started, there's a few things that you need to understand. First of all, you got to really want to quit drinking, and you got to really want to quit using. That's first and foremost, right? This is such a big task for you to do. Such a good thing for you to do too, as well, for yourself, but it's not easy. It's not going to be easy. So you need to really want it. And there are two things that you need to believe. Okay? You do not need to believe in multiplicity or the theory of multiple selves. You don't need to actually believe that. But what you do need to believe is that A, there is a part of you that cares for you, that loves you. Doesn't necessarily have to be another personality, but there is a part of you that loves you and cares for you, and that is the voice of reason. That's the voice that says, I don't want to drink. That's your real voice. And B, you also need to believe that there is another part of you that is forever a child, and that whenever you are in trouble of some kind or seeking a reward, it steps forward and says, I want to drink, and you've given it control. Those are the two things that you have to believe. Okay? So, oh yes, I also need to say this one thing, and this will become clear later. This is a big part of the actual technique of the alcoholic personality method, is that before I got sober, I had practiced meditation for years, on and off. But I knew what it felt like to be completely clear in mind And I knew what it felt like for my body to be completely calm without any tension or stress. I knew what that felt like. My body knew what it felt like, and my mind knew what it felt like. Because you are going to need to know what that feels like. Now, before we get too far, don't worry about it, right? If it's meditation is not something that you do, don't worry. Tomorrow I'm going to post another video. It's going to be an induction. An induction is basically just a set of prompts that will help you relax in body and mind. And then I'm going to lead you into a meditation so you will know what it feels like, exactly what it feels like to be completely free of any and all stress in body and mind. Okay? So yeah, let's do it. Let's get into it. Step 1. You need to find out who that personality is that loves you. This is the personality or the part of you that loves without fear, that loves you unconditionally. And you're going to need to name it. I call mine father and leader. Now, here's the thing. You can call it mother or father, but I know for a lot of people there may be a negative connotation to both of those words, or either one of those words. So it doesn't need to be mother and father. It doesn't have to be leader. It could be coach. It could be Julie. It could be Sam. It doesn't really matter. Okay, just as long as it's a name that that kind of speaks to an authority in yourself. Right? So I know of a person, a client of mine, that calls their personality coach. Why not? Again, I call mine leader or father, humble leader, but it doesn't matter, right? Just give it a name. And this is how you're going to find it. Okay. I want you to create a document. It could be a loose leaf sheet of paper. It could be from a notebook, a journal, or it could be a Word document on your computer. It doesn't matter. And I need you to make 2 rows right down the middle, right? On one side, it's going to be all of your positive attributes. Now, your positive attributes is exactly what they sound like. But there's some of us, though, that are less likely to really think that they have a lot of positive attributes. So I want you to list everything that A, hopefully that you believe about yourself, and B, things that people have told you in your life that have cared for you. Whether or not they're around right now or even care for you anymore, it doesn't really matter. Could be a friend, a mother, father, uncle, aunt, whatever. Anybody who has said something positive about you, it doesn't matter whether or not you believe it. And here's another thing to think of when you're doing your positive attributes is that we have the tendency sometimes to cancel out our positive attributes because we think that some other part of our personality or another personality cancels that out. But remember this, is that human beings are extremely complex creatures. You can be 2 things at the same time. We are contradictory in nature. So for example, I can be shy, but I can also be very charming. I could be very kind and gentle, but I can also be rude. You could be 2 things. Okay, so just because you think one aspect of you cancels out the other, don't worry about that. Put it down. It doesn't matter. Okay. And in your second row, it's going to be, of course, your negative attributes. Now, remember this. When you are writing down your negative attributes, if you cannot be honest about your negative attributes, then you cannot be honest about your positives. So be brutally honest. And now here's the thing. This whole exercise is not for you to judge yourself. It's going to be hard not to, but that's not the point of this. Trust me. This specific row, this negative attributes, is actually going to be for step 3. Because here's the thing. If you're honest with yourself, you are going to have a really good picture of yourself, an honest picture of yourself. So here's the thing, okay? And this might help you with your negative attributes. That everything that's in your positive attributes list is who you really are. That's the real you. Everything that's in your negative attributes list is a response of fear. It's a fear response. Even though, again, you might believe all these things about yourself, you might believe that you're a piece of shit. I know I did for years. You might believe that you're a liar, all of these things, blah, 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 blah. But that's actually not who you really are. You did those things out of fear. You hurt people out of fear. And I know, again, I'm an alcoholic. I have alcohol use disorder. I'm speaking to people with the same issues, with addiction issues. I know you've hurt people. I get that. We're not talking about that right now. But it was a fear response, trust me. Okay? So now that we got that, let's move on to step 2. Step 2 is we need to find out who your alcoholic personality is. Who is this person? Okay, so there is this belief in recovery programs. And the belief is this, is that if you take the age you were when you started drinking or using, and you add it to how many years you've been in recovery, the number you get is your actual emotional age. So with that, I'm about 17 or 18 years old, max. But that's okay. Most of us are emotionally immature. How many times have you been in traffic and you've seen some 50 or 60-year-old guy losing his shit on the freeway, just losing his mind? He's acting like a baby. Or maybe you've been to the grocery store or the bank and you see some lady, she's like in her 60s or 70s, and she's just chewing out the cashier. She's acting like a child. Most of us are pretty childish, so it's okay. So I want you to go ahead and think about who you were when you started drinking and using. Were you scared? Were you angry, funny, intelligent, crafty, a jerk, whatever? Just think about who you were at that age. Think about that person. And again, this whole exercise is not to be judgmental. It's not to judge yourself. The point is to just really get a good, clear picture. And always remember that this, especially this personality, is a child, and you need to think of it as a kid. So have a little compassion, okay? So you could do a little mini negative, positive attributes for this personality, but just get a good idea of who this person was, right? What was going on in your life at this time. And here's another thing really quick before we move on is that, I do know a lot of people in recovery, they started drinking heavily when they were older, like in their 20s or late 20s, 30s, 40s. And I found that people who have issues with alcohol that didn't start drinking till later share the same emotional insecurities, the same emotional immaturities as the rest of us who started drinking when we were younger. So just, even if you didn't start drinking till later, just think about yourself as a teenager, right? Think about that time in your life when you really needed somebody to be there and there was just nobody there. There were no answers, when you felt out of control, complete chaos. And then just go from there, okay? So step 3, we need to find out your triggers and your stressors. We need to know why you drink. Now, if you were brutally honest in your negative attributes in step 1, this should be pretty simple. You drink most likely because of all of those reasons, right? Reasons that make you scared, reasons that make you abusive, reasons that make you lie, or because of it. But again, we're not looking at this to judge ourselves. It's not the point. We just want to figure out why we drink, okay? So you have that, but also let's think of things like actual stressors in life that might make you drink. And I want you to think about that right now and list them down, right, in your document. Maybe, like I mentioned before, maybe you have a boss who's a dickhead, who's rude. She's really mean. He's really mean, whatever. Maybe they're abusive. Maybe you have a very difficult coworker. Maybe there are difficult people in your life. Maybe your spouse is a difficult person, or you're having difficulties with them right now. Maybe you have a nosy neighbor, family members that harass you, that just bring upon negative memories. I know I have plenty of that. My family was a huge reason why I drank. But just reasons like that. Again, maybe the morning commute, the evening commute. Think about times that you want rewards, right? Like a Friday night, Saturday night. Maybe friends that you hang out with that like to drink a lot. Think about all that stuff. Driving by liquor stores, that was a big one for me. Or shopping, grocery shopping, going by the alcohol aisle or the beer aisle. I mean, there was probably very few times in my life as an adult that I didn't at least peruse the alcohol aisle. And usually I bought something. usually, even if I didn't feel like drinking. I can tell you I drank that night, though, after getting the booze. So yeah, think about all those things, okay? So look, now that we know, that personality in you that gives a shit about you, that personality that is a child, and the reasons why you drink, let's move on to step 4. And this is basically what we were talking about earlier. Meditate. You're going to need to meditate. And if you say right now, it's like, I don't meditate, I don't know how that is, can I still use this method? Yeah, you can. It's probably going to take you a few days, possibly a week. If you start meditating right now, and again, tomorrow I'm going to post another video that is going to take you to the place that you need to be in terms of being calm, in terms of just having no stress at all, no anxiety. I will post a video tomorrow getting you to that place. Because here's the thing, this is what you're going to need to know. You're going to need to know what it feels like to be free of stress and anxiety, to have mental clarity at the same time. You're going to need to know what this feels like, okay? And when I get on to step 5, the final step, you're going to see why. But for now, if you're like, hey, I want to meditate today, okay, either go on and another channel on YouTube and find a 5 to 10 minute meditation, mindfulness meditation. That should be important to say. It should be mindfulness. Find a good meditation and just sit down with it and do it every day. If you're going to do a guided meditation, try to make it at least 10 minutes and try to go as long as you can. But if you don't want to do that, then I can give you a simple one right now, okay? Go ahead and find for yourself a place where you can be alone, undisturbed, where you could sit down in silence. And I want you to take with you your phone, break out your timer, set your timer for 5 minutes, start your timer. Go ahead and take a deep breath and close your eyes. Take a few deep breaths. Not forced, but just... And another one. Do that for a few times, and then settle your breath down. Just go into your normal breathing pattern and pay attention to your breath. And just do that for 5 minutes. And if your mind wanders, and it's going to wander, that's okay, no big deal. Just guide it back to your breath. And this could be tough for some people. It was tough for me, actually. It's like saying, hey, don't think of an elephant. It's saying, hey, just, don't try to control your breath, just breathe normally and observe it. But I couldn't just breathe normally. It's like I had to control it. Like it just, my mind was on my breathing. That's all of a sudden, like I'm paying attention to my breathing. Now I have to control it. But that's okay too. If that's how it is, no big deal. Just let it be natural. And again, tomorrow I'll post an induction with a meditation and that'll put everything together for you. Okay, finally, look, step 5. We're there, okay? This is where it all comes together, all right? So you're living your life, and all of a sudden you're faced with one of those stressors. Maybe it's traffic, doesn't really matter. You want to drink, there comes that voice, right? I want to drink or I want to use. This is what you do. If you are alone, I want you to close your eyes. If you're not alone, then I want you to excuse yourself as soon as you can and go to the bathroom. If you're driving in a car, go ahead and pull over where it's safe, not on the side of the freeway, but where it's safe. Park safely, close your eyes, and I want you to say this thing, okay? I am the one who cares for me. Therefore, I am in control and I abstain from drinking or using. Again, I am the one who cares for me. Therefore, I am in control and I abstain from alcohol or cocaine or marijuana or whatever, okay? And the reason why you want to say something, and by the way, you can use something else. If it doesn't feel natural for you to say that, then make up your own thing. But the point has to be this, is that you are focusing your mind on the fact that that voice in your head that said, I want to drink and I want to use is not you. Focusing on the fact that you actually don't want to do that. That's very important. So whatever you use, whatever mantra you make for yourself, it has to say that. Don't make it too confusing. Just make it very clear, okay? That's the first thing you're going to do. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to relax your body. Now, again, this is where the meditation comes in. And this might not come easily to somebody using this for the very first time. But trust me, if you meditate at least for a week, this will become second nature to you. Relax your body. Okay? Focus on your shoulders. Relax your shoulders. You could even do it slow. Focus on your back. Relax your back. Relax your temples. Relax your eyes. Once your body starts to relax, it's going to become very clear that there is a point of tension within you. This point of tension is your craving, is the physical manifestation of your craving. For me, I always felt it like in my upper chest and my throat. Now, this is something that my hypnotherapist instructor always loved to say. She loved to quote Aristotle. And Aristotle once stated that a vivid imagination compels the entire body to obey it. What that means is every thought that you have, whether it's good or bad, there is a physiological response to that thought. Again, there is a manifestation of that thought that is kept in your body. So when you're relaxing yourself and everything is relaxed, you're going to find tension in your body. Wherever it is, focus on that tension. And just by focusing on that point of tension, that stress, it will slowly dissolve. And stay with it. Stay with it till it completely dissolves, as long as it takes. And when that tension dissolves, the cravings will dissolve with it. And that is the alcoholic personality method. Because if you really want to quit drinking and you really want to quit using, this is a free way to do it. And here's another thing, okay? So I am a certified hypnotherapist, and the reason I became certified in hypnotherapy is because it helped me immensely in early sobriety. And I wanted to help other people overcome their addictions. In fact, I wanted to do it and only work with people with addictions and alcohol use disorder. And that's what I do. My clients are only people who are facing addiction issues. That's it. Because I know something about it. And hypnosis is a really great way to start new habits. You are in a very deep meditative state, and it's a visualization. And when you are in a state of trance, your subconscious mind can be easily accessed, and you are suggestible to change at that point. If you wanted the added benefits of hypnotherapy, you wanted to book time with me, then my email is in the description. You could shoot me an email saying that you're interested, and then we'll work something out. You'll find that my rates are actually very reasonable actually, and it's probably just going to be one session, right? Like other hypnotherapists, they're going to need you to come back like 6 or 7 times. I don't want you to come back 6 or 7 times. I want to help you out right now. And I think I can do that. I believe I can. I have helped people do this. One session. But I can tell you right now, if you are using the alcoholic personality method, you could be sober on day 1. I'm telling you, you could be sober on day 1. You could be sober today. Okay, so yeah, that's about it. And that was a lot. That was a long video. So if you stuck with it this whole time, thank you very much. If you like this video, go ahead. This is my first video, so go ahead and like and subscribe. That, I hear it helps a lot. But yeah, tomorrow I'm going to post a video that's going to be an induction and a meditation. And it's going to teach you how to get to that point where you need to be to utilize this method. So again, my name is Brian Robert Oliver, and I'll be seeing you around.